Hey, I'm Guac, I love you, and I'm about to try to teach you as much as I possibly can about operating systems in 5 minutes. But first, let me get prepped. Gotta put on my nerd glasses. And wait, that's not all, because, well, you might think that operating systems are some kind of magic, but I'm here to teach you, alright? Okay, let me get the timer out on my phone, and we'll get started. Beep, 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 beep. Alright, 5 minutes. Go. Okay, hi, what is an operating system? An operating system is like the software that sits on top of the computer so that your software can interact with the computer's hardware components. So it's kind of like a firmware, but it does more than that. So the operating system is composed of one main thing, and then all the other stuff branches out from it, which is why we call it the kernel. It's like a little kernel of popcorn. And then all your other stuff comes out from there, like drivers to deal with like connecting to different hardware peripherals. So your driver would connect stuff like your keyboard over USB. So the keyboard has to talk through USB, which is a protocol, to the driver, which talks to the kernel and translates that data so that the kernel can process everything as it goes. So the kernel talks basically directly to the CPU and all your other hardware components. So it manages the memory. How does it manage memory? Well, in modern operating systems, we use something called paging, because RAM, as you know, random access memory, it's called RAM because it means that we can, if you imagine it as a bunch of little blocks that can either be zeros or ones, and nowadays those are thousands and thousands and thousands of zeros or ones, we have to find a way to manage all that data. So RAM is called random access memory because we can access it at any point we wish. And all of these little blocks, we can access it wherever we want. But we don't want to just access it wherever we want, because what if one program that's talking to the kernel is like, hey, I need memory, so let's just overwrite whatever's being written. But hey, the operating system needed that memory. Oh shit, well we're fucked. We can't just write over the operating system memory because then everything goes to shit. So yeah, don't do that. So the kernel manages operating system memory. Well, it manages the computer memory. First, it reserves a portion of it for itself, obviously, because it's like, hey, you can't be taking all that. That's for me. I need that to work. So instead of directly interfacing with the memory on the computer, the kernel manages what's called virtual memory, which means it actually lies to the system about what memory is available. And it determines what memory is available to the system, to the software on the system. So when your Hyperland or whatever the hell you're running says, hey, I need memory, it doesn't actually ask directly for the raw memory from the computer, from like the hardware. It asks the operating system for the memory, and the operating system's kernel it figures out what virtual memory is available, and then it gives you a page of memory, which is it's previously subdivided so that it can be allotted in portions, and we're not just overwriting memory, and like people don't just have big huge chunks of memory that they're not using. So you lease memory from the operating system. So the operating system's main job is that it does all the drivers, it handles all the connections that your software needs to have with the hardware. So that also means stuff like you need graphics drivers so that you can connect to your monitors. That's handled by the operating system. You need virtual memory and stuff, which we just talked about. So the memory management needs to come from the operating system so that your programs can request memory from the computer, and really they're just requesting it from the operating system. But the operating system also needs to handle more low-level tasks, like interrupts. It needs to be able to manage the other programs that are on the machine. And it needs to manage like how it's giving them access to the CPU. So really it's just like one big layer over your computer that lets all the software on your computer interact with the hardware peripherals and the hardware on your computer. So it sits in between your computer and all the software on it. So writing an operating system is about figuring out what kind of drivers you need to write, like what kind of interactions you need to have with external stuff, like keyboards and stuff and mice, and also like what hardware you have access to. So if you have a GPU, well, you got to figure out how to interact with the GPU. You got to like write the commands directly to it. You also have to figure out like the scheduling and stuff, so that you can do all the virtual memory stuff and all the CPU stuff. and like determine how to portion out that time, because all an operating system does is manage resources, pretty much. It just it just gives the software on the computer access to the resources on the machine. That's plain and simple what an operating system does. We will get into, I'm going to do another 5-minute session just trying to teach you as much as I possibly can about how to actually write it, but this is just like the broad overview. It just manages all the resources on the machine and gives that access to the software on the machine that needs it. Thank you.